parental advisory warning. I cuss a lot. I don't care. But I have to hold this shit because I don't have a microphone. I sold it, so I'm just waiting to get a new one. But today we are gonna go over the Tulsa race massacre. Okay, time out. Let me fucking. I honestly might as well. Well, it would be way easier for me. Okay, so I need my hands free so I could. Whew. All right, let's go. So you see all of these pictures, right? That is the aftermath of the Tulsa race massacre. We are not calling it just a massacre. It was a race massacre. White people killed black people for tale as old as time. A black man staring at a white woman, I guess. Sound familiar? Emmett Till? Yeah. But if I look up, it is because I am fact checking. Because we should always fact check. Um, yeah, so I'm going to read this straight from this site because this is how the race war began. Um, I guess we should go over some things before we get there. So, in Tulsa, back in the day, Black Wall Street. That was at the Greenwood District. Black Wall Street was a thriving place for black people. This was supposed to be our generational wealth for our children. But it was fucking ruined. Um, it sucks because nobody really knows about it. It's not really taught in history classes. You may have heard it once, like a couple times before, but you really don't know what happened or why it started or the aftermath and the continuing lasting effects that this massacre has had and still has on the black community in Tulsa today. Um, this happened, I think, 1921. Yes, it happened in 1921. So this year is the 100th year anniversary of the Tulsa race massacre, or race, or whatever you want to call it. Um, so yeah, once again, the Greenwood District is in Tulsa. It is one of the most prominent African American, sort of where African Americans sort of concentrate there. That is one of the biggest ones, you know, in that area. Like honestly, like the Black Wall Street was it for black people in that country in this country. Like Black Wall Street basically, you know, that was supposed to be our saving grace type thing. Like that's those people made it. They did everything right. They lived they lived their lives how the white man said we should live, and they still got their businesses busted up and bombed and lives lost because of tale as old as time once again. Um, but the specific reason why this so-called race war occurred was because I have the exact. I want to read this exactly from this page. Okay. On May 30th, 1921, almost 100 years ago, tomorrow, 100 years ago, it'll be 100 years and 1 month tomorrow, that the Tulsa Race Massacre occurred. So on May 30th, 1921, Dick Rowland, a young African American shoe shiner, was accused of assaulting a white elevator operator named Sarah Page in the elevator of a building in downtown Tulsa. The next day, the Tulsa Tribune printed a story saying that Rowland had tried to rape Page, with an accompanying editorial stating that a lynching was planned for that night. That evening, mobs of both African Americans and whites descended on the courthouse where Rowland was being held, when a confrontation between an armed African American man there to protect Rowland and a white protester resulted in the death of the latter. The white mob was incensed, and the Tulsa massacre was thus ignited. Over the next 2 days, mobs of white people looted and set fire to African American businesses and homes throughout the city. Many of the mob members were recently returned World War I veterans trained in the use of firearms and are said to have shot African Americans on sight. Some survivors even claim that people in airplanes dropped incendiary bombs. When the massacre ended on June 1st, the official death toll was recorded at least 10 whites and 26 African Americans. That shit is not true. We will never know the true number because none of these people were ever prosecuted for their crimes against us black people for being purely black. So we will never know the true number. Here it's reporting 26 African Americans, and then the next, after the comment says, though experts now believe at least 300 people were killed. I'm pretty sure more than 26 African Americans were killed in this. You see this. You see the newspaper, right? So many conflicting stories. And that's the problem with not only black history, but any person in this country who is not white. Our history is constantly erased and hidden and pushed down so nobody fucking knows about it. Even black people don't even realize that this happened in such a capacity that it happened. No, white people did not just shoot black people and leave them dead in the streets. They tortured some black people. They like here's what we got to this is what we got to get fucking through people's heads. Black people are not murdered by the police. They are lynched. Okay? Lynched. Let me read you the differences and definitions of murder and lynch, alright? This is straight from Webster himself, the motherfucker, alright? Murder. Kill unlawfully and with premeditation. Or punish severely or be very angry with. Conclusively defeat in a game or sport. So that is the definition of murder. Very playful, very innocent, right? Now, let me read you the definition of lynched, and that is a huge difference. And we need to start saying lynched instead of murder when black people get gunned down in the streets like Ahmaud Arbery and by racist white people like Tamir Rice. Why was he killed? Trayvon Martin. Why was he killed? Look, lynched. To put this is the actual word of lynched, but the definition that I saw earlier put it into clear perspective. Okay. So lynching. This is from Britannica, okay? This definition. Lynching. A form of violence in which a mob, aka the white mob in Tulsa, under the pretext of administering justice without trial, Roland over here, they wanted to lynch him because they presumed that he raped a white woman. Executes a presumed offender, often after inflicting torture and corporal mutilation. The term lynch law refers to a self-constituted court that imposes a sentence on a person without due process of law. So, all these police killings, they're lynchings. They're not murders. They're not accidents. They're not manslaughter. They're lynchings. Let's just say it how it is at this point. It's 2021. We need to stop dancing around the topic. Black people are literally being lynched in the streets. Not one thing has changed other than the fact that we have cameras. That's what was so significant about the Rodney King case. They got that shit on camera. You see, all we have is pictures right here. Now we got cameras, and people still don't believe this shit is happening? That is out of pure ignorance and denial that racism exists in this country. You have black people telling you, yes, racism exists. Your ignorant white ass is coming over here. I don't see racism, so therefore, as a white person, I'm now saying that racism doesn't exist, and that's just how it's gonna be. No, that's not how it works. When a black person says something is racist, it's generally racist. 99.9% out of the time it's racist. Or it's rooted in racial hate. Or it's just racially insensitive. So, anyways, let's get to the actual riot parts. Oh, actually, before that, I'm going to give you guys the current demographic of Oklahoma, Tulsa to be exact, because it's very specific to Tulsa, because there is Oklahoma City. There's actually a whole military base in Oklahoma, Fort Sill, Oklahoma. That's actually where I went to basic training. So I have never even touched Tulsa. I can't imagine how it is there even now for black people. I'm going to try to make my way to Tulsa to march with my black brothers and sisters for the 100th year anniversary of Black Wall Street. So, oh yeah. First of all, I'm going to start saying land acknowledgement. So Tulsa now exists in what was considered, I apologize for all these mispronunciations of the native names. Kickapoo, spelled Kiikaapoi. Um, Woof. I'm honestly just might type it in the description. So Creek, Kato, Osage, Kickapoo, and others. So and then all so this was it was formally settled in 1836 by the Lokapoka and Creek tribes. So always got to get the land acknowledgments out of the way first. Yeah, so we all know that the Creek tribe was one of the five civilized tribes. Um, so even there's when I read you the demographics, there's not even a lot of native people there in what should be their land, which is even crazier. So, according to the 2010 census, Tulsa has a population of 391,000 people. 62% of those people are white Americans. 15% of those people are black Americans. 14% are Hispanic or Latino. This is just I don't like Wikipedia, but I just needed something quick. 8% are some other race. 5% are two or more races. Only 5% Native American people. There, that's actually crazy because literally this was their land. 2% Asian American, and 0.1% Native Hawaiian and other Pacific Islander. So the black population is 15%, and the white population is 62%. Not much change. Not much has changed in terms of population, honestly. Um, so when the Tulsa oh man, if I say my R's wrong, mind your business. I have rhoticism. So in 1920, 1 year before the race riots happened, um, Tulsa had a population of 72,000 people. So you can just imagine that there probably wasn't as many black people even even then. So black people were already disadvantaged, and for them to basically steal what these people have been building for since slavery is evil. It's a different kind of evil. And so when people ask me personally if I hate white people, that is a very complicated question because how are you not supposed to hate a race that's done this to your people? Look at this. Look at all these pictures. Literally, this is what happened with Emmett Till. This is just in 1921. That's literally crazy. History repeats itself for black people, and it's doomed to repeat itself until you, as white people, stand up and say, hey, this shit isn't right, and you start teaching your fellow white people about shit like this. Because when you watch this video, yes, I may be breaking it down for you, but you still need to go and do your own research and then take that back to your fellow white people because this shit never needs to happen again. And it's gonna happen again unless we nip that shit in the bud because Trump made all the races brave again. Like, y'all seen Charlottesville? That shit was disgusting. The Capitol, that shit was disgusting. And all that shit, even before the Capitol, there was fucking a Proud Boy invasion in Washington, D.C. You had literally people out fighting Proud Boys on the street and white supremacists like some Mortal Kombat shit. What timeline is this? Why, like, I just fail to see how there is a denial of racism in this country when there are pictures like this that exist where people literally got their businesses smashed and their lives lost for the color of their skin, bro. So when us black people were out here protesting and stuff, it's not just something to pass the time. It's life or death for if it's not me, it'll be my cousin, maybe my dad, my friend. It can happen to any black person at any time. And for a lot of black people, it takes that for them to even stand up and say, "Hey, this shit isn't right." It's happened to a lot of white families too who have lost their loved ones to police brutality, and that shouldn't have to happen. You shouldn't have to lose someone for you to stand up and say, "Fuck this system. It wasn't built for us. Abolish it all and rebuild it." Cuz look at this shit. None of these people were prosecuted. This is, if somebody did this today, they'd be buried under the jail. I don't know, maybe. Again, probably get away with it at this point. Like, I wouldn't be surprised. But just the significance of everything that has happened the past year. When George Floyd died on May 25th, that set off a spark in this country. It granted, I think people were a little, closed in because of the pandemic, but regardless, that set off a huge chain reaction of events. There has been so much talk and so much small subtle changes that don't even make sense in this country. Like, all we're asking for is for the police to not kill us and treat us like normal people, not animals. And for some reason that's controversial. Why is that such a controversial topic in this country? Like, all we're doing is asking to be seen as equals to our white counterparts. That's not a huge ask. So, let's go back to Tulsa, okay? Black Wall Street was a flourishing place. Says, all right, the largest number of black townships after the Civil War were located in Oklahoma. This was between, when the Civil War first started and up until the race massacre in Oklahoma. And like, there's a lot of black there was a lot of black self-sufficient communities in that time period. And there still are a lot of black self-sufficient communities who are just overlooked, and they're getting pushed out by gentrification. The Bay Area, gentrified as hell. Black people used to be thriving, like, in this country in their own little space in their world. And every time we do something for ourselves, it gets questioned or blown up into all these different proportions that don't even make sense. Like, I'm pretty sure people probably thought Black Wall Street was trying to take over Oklahoma or something. But, like, that's just so crazy to me how this isn't taught in school. I'm just scrolling, and, like, all of this stuff is just, this needs to be taught in school. Because, everybody knows Tulsa was segregated. I hope you guys know Tulsa was segregated. And if you don't know, now you do. Just scrolling through here because, like, I really want to bring this information to the world, and I, like, at least in a basic knowledge type thing, so people can research it more in depth, like I was talking about earlier. So, if you guys don't know, there were resurgences of the KKK. There were different eras of the KKK, and I'm pretty sure this was when the Reconstruction period KKK came. After the Civil War and stuff like that. I'm actually very curious to know what era of that was, because they're all racist to me, but it's very important to, like, sort of sort of know your history. Like, that's the problem in this country. We don't teach enough right history. We teach this patriotic, watered down, fucking propaganda bullshit ass Uncle Sam, fucking join the American military and fight for your fellow citizens' rights. First of all, that's imperialism. Y'all bomb people, okay? But okay, so blah blah blah. We all know the KKK was around during slavery. But the KKK went away for a little bit. I mean, they didn't go away, but they sort of dissipated, And they came back in this time period, and that's when shit started kicking off again. See? Look at this. I found it. In 1915, the Klan reemerged in Atlanta, Georgia at Stone Mountain, which depicts images of Confederate leaders. See? See? The reemergence of the KKK. Give me 1 second. Alright, so back to the Klan. This newfound Klan started targeting Not only black people, but Jewish people, you know, immigrants, Catholics, people who didn't agree with their little message. This is all connected. This is all connected. Um, yeah, so they literally had recruiting ads for the Klan. Like, and I don't know. I live in Turlock, California, and the Klan was here in the 90s, burning crosses and fucking fields and shit. Um, Pretty sure they probably still had slaves. So, but black to back. Oh, Jesus Christ, back to the actual Tulsa race massacre. So when that happened, motherfuckers started just going brazy. When I say motherfuckers, I'm talking about white people, cause like I said, you just thought they shot people in the street? No, they tortured them. They threw our bodies over the bridge into rivers and just left them there. There's mass graves that are probably still being uncovered in Tulsa. Black people have to live there, live with this memory. Like, look at these pictures. Look at these pictures. This is not, this is real life. Whole blocks obliterated. Obliterated because of racism. Black people completely, pretty sure bloodlines and family lines were severed, okay? Like, that's what I'm talking about when I say racism runs deep and they're trying to exterminate us, black people in this country. When I say they, you know who I'm talking about. And if the shoe fits, the shoe fits, okay? Um, but fucking. So it says a death toll. I'm going through my notes here. Like, once again, the people were never prosecuted. Never, 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 never prosecuted. Um, so look, this is even sadder. Tulsa mayor announced that the city would search for lost graves of victims in 2018. There's still people being found and unearthed. Like, God, the deep racial hatred that has to, like, be present in your mind for all of this to occur. Once again, I'm keep pointing back to the pictures because what picture was worth 1,000 words? I have 1,000 words to say about this shit. And Jesus, just it's depressing. It's really depressing to see how many people don't know about stuff like this and that Black Wall Street was a thriving place. We had our own stuff. We always have our own stuff and it gets taken or fucking destroyed. Let's see. Oh, see, yeah, that's the thing. How long? It's 100 years ago. That's my grandma was born in 1929. That's 8 years before. That's 8 years after the Tulsa riots, Jim Crow, segregation, the second civil right. This was leading the second civil rights movement. That's what I like to call this time period right now, because the first civil rights movement was leading up until this building, building, building. This is what I like to call the building period of the second civil rights movement because there's so much animosity between races because just history. History is doomed to repeat itself unless we learn from it. And we learn from it by putting ourselves out there and being uncomfortable and seeing shit like this. Like, it's traumatizing for black people because just the thought that something like this could happen again at any time, and we've seen, J6, ain't nobody gonna get prosecuted. We got white supremacists in the White House. We got white supremacists in the FBI. We got white supremacist pigs. That shit could happen at any time. Like, any time. Like, there are literally mass graves, guys. Like, that's what's fucked up. Like, I want to see if there's a timeline for, like, the Tulsa massacre because it occurred May 30th to June 1st. That's when they say the official, or the 31st to June 1st. That's when they say the official massacres occurred. It occurred during a 14-hour period or whatever. So, oh look, that tells me the 1921 demographics of Tulsa. So most Tulsans were native born and white. fewer than 1,000 identified themselves as American Indians. About 9,000 were black. So again, we had 72,000 people living in Tulsa in the 1920s. 9,000 were black. Do the math. Um, so like I said, Greenwood. Greenwood was the black. That was the black community because Tulsa was segregated. Greenwood had everything. Had everything like that could black people could ever need because we don't want to go out of our little segregated area. Why would we? Because these white people are crazy. So keep it going. Keep it going. Um. Oh, this is another interesting fact. Look, listen to this. It says crime and law enforcement were important issues in Tulsa. Less than 2 weeks before the massacre, Oklahoma Assistant Attorney General Catherine Van Leuven led an investigation of the Tulsa Police Department that revealed a poorly trained and sometimes corrupt force so ill equipped that it did not have a single reliable automobile. When officers need transportation to crime scenes, they were taken in private cars driven by volunteer citizens. So I assume some of these volunteer citizens took it upon themselves to deputize themselves and lynch black people in the streets. Okay, there's this is basically the South, so obviously there's huge race issues. Damn, look, there's this. Oh my God, these are newspaper articles. It says nab Negro for attacking girl in elevator. This is asking people to basically kill this person. Oh, like once again, lynching. Um, NAACP, blah blah blah. Obviously, I had an issue with it. Um, at 4 p.m., on that day, an anonymous caller told the police commissioner, "We are going to lynch that Negro, that black devil who assaulted that girl." And so then they arranged to move Roland from the city jail to a more secure county lockup. So this attracted a gathering of around 2,000 people at this courthouse, and that's when shit started setting off. Um, Rising race tensions. Oklahoma National Guard was called in. Then motherfuckers started bombing our businesses, killing our people. Then the fucking National Guard came in after that. Barrett heads machine gun armed guards. Negro driven from burning black belts. Race war start came in arrest of young Negro. Whites advancing into Little Africa. Negro death list is about 15. This was in the fucking Tulsa newspapers. That is absolutely crazy. There was telegrams that were sent out. Like mobs, guys. So I'm gonna end this video right here because I'm gonna need you guys to go do some more in-depth research and take it back to your friends so this shit don't happen again. Okay, how do I stop this shit?